has started.
And we will open the meeting today. Leslie's taking our notes. He's gone on vacation, hopefully. And we got all here, and everyone else you're good. So first item of business is the City of Sumner wastewater facility equipment upgrades.
Thank you, Dan. I'll lead off on that. I do have representatives from the City of Sumner here this evening. They really will be doing the bulk of the talking on this topic. Just as by way of a little bit of an introduction, there's multiple things that are going to be discussed, but one of the big ones and the one that's really pushing this forward a little bit is, you may recall as we've been down to the facility in the past that the biosolids dryer is one item that has been getting a little long in the tooth. Although it's in reasonably decent condition, it does require some significant repairs. And there is a long story that goes along with that I'm going to let Jason go into here, but getting the vendor to come up and actually do those has been a challenge. There has been a project out in 2028 that has been on the books as kind of a placeholder for a future effort in the Sumner budget for the wastewater treatment plant, of course, which we share a portion of. And we are talking about potentially advancing some of that work to closer dates so that we can go ahead and get that work done sooner rather than later. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jason. Jason, maybe if you could just do a quick introduction for those the Sumner folks that are here, and then you can go ahead and get started.
Be glad to. Thank you, Ryan. And that pretty much summed up my next 5 minutes of talking right there. So I'll try not to rehash too much. But Jason Van Gilder, I'm the associate city engineer down at the city of Sumner. I'm also on the meeting tonight is Mike Dahlem, our public works director, and Ron Bassinger, who is our lead superintendent at the plant. He's taken over for Anthony, who was there in that role for a year, and then Greg Kongsley, who was in that role for several years. So I appreciate all of them, and may feel free to interject, either of you, as I go along, should you see something, and other folks as well. Please let me know if you have questions. Jumping into our presentation, hoping to, once we get through introduction here, give you a high-level overview of what our plant does. I know not all of you have probably been there, and this can be a complex operation, and even if you've been there, it's easy to kind of get things confused, and we'll just give you a high-level talk so that we're all kind of working on the same page as we keep talking. So first, let me start out with a thank you. You guys have been great partners for a number of years, particularly to Ryan and Doug and Todd and now Jack. They've all been down to the plant, and that means a lot. We're trying to have quarterly check-ins so that they're aware of what's going on, and also so we can see our stakeholders and the operators and myself. We appreciate knowing that you guys care what we're doing and that we're doing it well, and appreciate all the work that's being done by Ron and his staff down there. A couple little things to brag on just really quick. We had a site inspection from Ecology not too many weeks ago. Came back with a very positive report of what they were seeing and how we were keeping the plant in good shape. Another positive thing, our staff has been really engaged with Puget Sound Energy in a energy savings cohort, and they've already saved. Ron could probably tell you, but I think it's 4 or 5% of our monthly energy bill. We've cut down, and we've still got more ideas, and they're doing some great things. Just this last maybe 2 weeks ago, we got recognized by Ecology for another outstanding wastewater treatment plant, and that's 10 years running. We've gotten that award for getting all our reporting in on time and staying within compliance. Ron's got a great staff, and that happens because of they know they're supported, and the partners and stakeholders are invested. So we don't get to say that nearly enough, but thank you for your help and your partnership in that. So moving on to just our plant overview, there's what it looks like. Google says that's 1,000 feet up, and we'll just talk about some different things. The highlighted area over here on the side, that's our headworks section. Bonney Lake flows and City of Sumner flows come into separate channels there where they get metered and sampled. The results, those samplings are what you see in your monthly invoice that allocate the costs according to the use of the plant. The bigger praying mantis type stainless steel things are the first screens. Those take out the toys and whatever else really shouldn't be in the wastewater to start with. Maybe your flushable wipes, non-flushable wipes. That comes out there early on. Flow then moves across the plant to our primary clarifiers. Those largely settle out grit and some other floatable things as a first stage of treatment. Once they're done there, they move into the large aeration basins. Those take up probably the bulk of the site themselves, and that's where all the process kind of happens. We feed the bugs some air and they grow, and we have spaces where they don't have air and they grow better without air sometimes. But we're growing the bugs so that they get heavy and want to sink and eat up the pollutants. From that, and actually the blowers in there, those are some of the largest energy users around the plant is the blowers in that room to the side of those basins. So that's what's pictured there. After the aeration basins, they go through the clarifiers. This water comes up through the center column, spills over the side. Anything that floats can get kind of scraped off the top with a skimmer. Anything that sinks, including those bugs that we just fed, go to the bottom and get scraped out of there. And then the water that's left that flows over the edge of this, the weir at the edge, is the cleanest water. Surprisingly clear and clean, and that gets sent over to one last stop before it heads out to the river, and that's our UV disinfection section, where that kills the last of the viruses before we discharge to the river. So that is our process for the clean water. When we're talking about the stuff we're taking out of the water, particularly the biological growth, that's what we're referring to as biosolids. Those generally come off the bottom of our clarifier and are treated in the larger portions you see highlighted there on the plant. The first step in that process is what's called a dissolved air flotation thickener. That uses air bubbles to make the solids sink to the bottom, and then it scrapes them, pushes them along into our next process. This probably dewaters our sludge from, I want to say, from 2% to 4 or 6%, somewhere in there. Ron could probably give me a better number. So that's our first step. This is one of the older pieces of equipment on the site. I always think of it as like an army tank, because it's just a big piece of square metal steel. Feels like it's kind of built like a tank. From there, we take the solids and send them to our digesters. Those are the two large tanks you see above ground from the freeway. And there the solids continue to process and digest. And the plant staff will mix them by pumping the digested solids through these large pumps. They'll also add some heat to the process through some natural gas, and then a good amount of gas comes off of our digesters, and that gets burned in what you see as the waste gas burner pictured here below. So a nice thing that we did in our energy savings thing is our staff figured out that the digesters actually work better if we turn the mixing off every hour and then back on and alternate a cycle instead of having it on continuously. That saved us a lot of energy, and it turns out that digestion works better if you take an hour nap after lunch. After digestion, we go through our centrifuge. This is the brand new centrifuge that we just installed over the last year and a half. This machine spins our wastewater very fast to get some additional water out. The end product from this looks like kind of a mud, maybe a little slightly dry mud, but still a mud material that can kind of get pushed around. Pretty solid at that point, but so this clarifier, or this centrifuge, this second centrifuge has allowed us to reduce our plant operations. They can process an entire batch in a single day instead of having to work some overtime there. It also is more appropriately sized for our the full plant build out, and then it also has the benefit of providing some redundancy with the old equipment. So this is one of those pieces that if we do need to take it out of service or it fails, we would still be able to continue with our process. Unlike our next piece, which after that we feed what comes out of the centrifuge into our dryer. Pictured here, this is only a few feet away, and this heats up the last of the step in the process, bakes out some of the pathogens and viruses so that it's safe material to spread on your lawn. And then from there, the product that comes out of that is a Class A biosolid. You'll see over there it's more of a granular material. Works really great in a lawn spreader to spread on your lawn. We're able to give this away to the public and also truck some of it away to farmers. It's good stuff. I put it on my lawn and it turns it green like that. So this has worked very well for us for a number of years, but what brings us here is back to our dryer. And this kind of came up about 2018. I remember it being late 2018 because we had just finished submitting all our materials for our 19 and 20 budget when Greg Consley called me up and said, "Hey, we've got a problem in the dryer and I'm going to need some more money in the budget." And so I thought the timing couldn't be worse, but here we are. So that was 2.5 years ago. Our crews, you'll see the corrosion on the back. The back end of plate of this is held on to the larger machine with a number of bolts. Those bolts, after 25 years of use, have just corroded, and it's a very hot environment with water, and that's just where corrosion happens. So our staff was able to put some temporary plates in here. That's what you see on the right-hand side of your screen, some temporary clamps to make sure it stayed in place. They've replaced as many bolts as they can, kind of done what they can to keep it in service and keep it operating, but we know that's not the right fix or the ultimate fix, and we've been working on that since then. To talk about how this or what we've been doing so far, this is a manufactured by a company called Fenton Technologies. They, from what I understand and have been told, they were sort of a midline dryer technology that was really popular and really good for their time. They brought a technology that was more suitable for the larger plants and made it affordable for mid-sized plants such as what we have. And it's really has served us well. It appears to be a good unit. Fenton themselves sold out their line of dryers to another dryer manufacturer for the new materials, and a number of Fenton employees started another company called AIT to service and maintain the legacy Fenton equipment. We invited those folks out, and they came out. We hired them to do an assessment of the unit. They came out and actually gave us a report that said this is as good a unit as they've seen anywhere in the country. Our crews have taken great care of it, and it could potentially have another 10 years, 10 plus years of service life in it. They said we need to replace the end plate on it, and we'd like to have a look inside to see how the paddles that move the material, how they're holding up, and just kind of give it a good overhaul. They gave us a price to do that. We said thank you. We took it in to look at it and run it through all the processes and realized that this isn't, we need to have all the usual things we have in contracting in public works in Washington. We need to make sure they're paying prevailing wages. The state mandates we hold some retention till the project's completed and the affidavits of prevailing wages have been paid. We need the contractor to be bonded and licensed. We went through all that. They upped their price and still didn't quite meet all of what we have to do. So we've been racking our brains and trying to work with them to figure out how to get them contracted. I think the bottom line is they're not real interested in jumping through all of Washington's hoops to contract for Washington. They're a bunch of guys from Texas like to just show up and fix a piece of equipment and get paid and go home. So we have been trying to think of everything we can do to make that work. We've thought about, can we hire them as a sub-consultant to a consulting firm to help us put together a small works contract? Can we hire them out as a subcontract to a local contractor that could handle the wage portions of it? What parts of this can we waive or get past with an emergency declaration? Is it possible to hire this out as a design build something through an energy savings design build arrangement? We have thought of everything we can think of in 2 years. If other folks have other options, we'll be glad to think about those for a while, because we're trying everything we can to get these guys signed up and going. But it's been slow going. I did get an email from them last week that kind of reiterated some stuff, and we're still working on following up there. But the bottom line is that we haven't been successful on that, and we're not sure we're going to be. Just talking about this, it's not as simple a project as it could be. This is an important step in our biosolids process. So I think we can survive about a week with it out of service if that's planned. If we process everything ahead of time, we could take it out for about a week before we have to start finding an alternate place to take biosolids. And they wouldn't be the Class A biosolids, they'd be Class B, which means we might be some sort of arrangement of hauling to Eastern Washington or finding another facility that could take them and process them. Ron has worked pretty hard at finding that, has some leads, but again, those type of options get pretty complex quickly, especially if you're having somebody that comes in that's not familiar with the equipment and knows what it is. They'd have to disassemble the whole thing, and it could be a month or two before they had the plate off and had made a replacement plate and was able to reinstall it. So those options are difficult. Not a lot of people really are jumping up and down to come in here and work on a high temperature key equipment process. And we're not real excited to have just anybody come in and work on our key equipment process either. So we have some incentive to try and work with AIT, and we're doing what we can. But as we're looking at that,
do you have to go out to bid?
Is that a question?
Do you have to go out to bid for that then, or
I'm sorry.
do you have to bid that job?
We have been looking at what we would have to bid out. If we can declare it as a sole source, we could get around some of the bidding requirements.
Good.
If we declared it as an emergency, we might get around some of those. But yes, we're exploring whatever options we can think of.
Yep. Finding a capable vendor that's able to work on it and being able to use them is good.
Yeah.
Jason?
Brian, you said
Yes.
us for 2028 also? Or?
Well, there's a larger suite of projects here, and I think Jason's getting ready to make the connection between this work they've been trying to get done with the dryer and the additional work that he wanted to talk about tonight. So I think, Jason, if you could maybe start to illustrate where we're going forward from here and
Yep.
what that looks like.
I got 2 slides, so let me jump into those. And the last point here is that as we're not getting success with the repair option, what's our plan B? And our plan B that we're thinking of is probably replacement. As we were doing the budget last year, looking at what's out there, even if this had a 10-year replacement or 10-year life left, maybe 10, 12 years, we still need to be thinking about starting to set some money aside for this. We budgeted in our rate model last year that we presented. We had sort of as a placeholder 2026, figuring 10 years might be a good horizon. Let's bring it forward a little bit. 2 years might be a worst case scenario, so we could push it out a little bit. We settled on 2026. We talked to some consultants that had done similar projects and got basically a placeholder number at $6 million for this type of equipment level replacement. But that's all those are, is really placeholders. We knew we had somewhere in the future we need to be talking about a replacement, and so we put it in there. Given the fact that we're not getting to the point where we can repair or getting the people to repair this that we're hoping to, we're thinking what can we do to expedite that project and get us, what does expediting that look like and what makes sense. And then I think it's my last slide. So the first step in doing that is probably to get the right consultant on board that's done this. We've drafted up a request for qualifications for engineering services that we've been circulating internally. We've shared a copy with Jack and Ryan over there. They've had some good questions about that, and so we're still developing that. But a couple general questions that people tend to, the frequently asked questions section, is why do you have everything? This is more than just a dryer. And yes, we've tried to make the scope for our request for qualifications as broad as we can, knowing that we've got an aging dissolved air thickener over there. That might be a very good candidate for an energy savings grant proposal. We've looked at, run some rough back of the envelope numbers, and the newer technology in rotating drum thickener might be a tenth of the power that this thing uses.
Way less than that even.
Yeah. So
Can you hear me at all, Jason?
yes, I can. Thank you, Ron. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, just currently that DAF runs 65 horsepower to get it to work. The FKC, as you know, Jack, runs about 2 horsepower to run it. The DAF was designed for a plant that no longer exists, and it is a real limiting factor on how much we can even put through it. So its life is probably past its end anyways, but 65 to 2 is a considerable reduction. Those are numbers for us.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Jason.
No, that's great input. Because that's exactly why we want to think about that at this time. Our waste burner that's burning off the gas that comes off of our digesters, that's another one that Puget Energy kind of brings up and says, can we be more efficient with that? And there certainly is the possibility of that, reusing some of that energy. And so we've got a number of components. We've got a generator that powers this end of the plant, dates from the early to mid 80s, if I'm correct there, Ron. Ron's nodding. if we're looking at a plan, if we're going to make this significant investment in a dryer now, let's make sure the things around it are going to be what we want them to be, and make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot in any place or prohibiting stuff. Make sure that the future plant expansion, if we have to add another primary clarifier, fits in there. There's just a lot of thinking that will benefit us to do in the next year. And then if some of these projects make sense to do, let's make sure we draft our request for qualifications wide enough that we can include them as part of this project if necessary, or as a separate phase to this project. But let's get the same minds working on thinking through all these things at one time, because we don't want to be here next year with the same speech about the DAFT or the generator. We want to be here telling you this is we based on the thinking we've done over the last year, this is the best option to move forward. So that's why we've written it kind of the way it is with so many things. We tried to wordsmith it to say this is an equipment modernization. That sounds better to energy people. They'd rather pay to modernize things than to replace things you were going to replace anyways. So some of that phrasing's in there. The first step in getting these reports is these reports will be necessary to support energy grants. They'll also be necessary to support ecology loans or grants that may be available. We think this has the potential to score well for loans, grants, or Public Works Trust Fund monies. So we need to sort all those things out probably in the next year. And that's why we've got this RFQ into Ryan to talk about. Let's get a plan for the next year. I know one other question Ryan had was what kind of money are we spending in the next year? This is probably in the under $100,000 range of design services to get our facility plan, our engineering plan, and to look at the components of what we're putting together. That would set us on course for a final design somewhere in the 22-23 range. And then construction, we're thinking after that, wouldn't be hard to envision a year somewhere in there, and then we're pretty close to what we had in the 2026 for actually building things about then. I guess that's really what I wanted to say. I think in hindsight, our cities had made some really smart choices in getting this equipment to start with. It's served the city very well for the last 20 plus years, and we've had a great way to dispose of biosolids as an asset to our community. And we've kind of gotten the life out of these. We're starting to look at how we do that again, and how you have the foresight to see how to keep this going. So that's why I'm here today. I'm happy to answer any questions, or at least defer them to Ron. So,
But is the $6 million a kind of a guesstimate of the entire project that we're talking about?
The $6 million was a guesstimate of the dryer replacement.
Doesn't include the generator and all the rest.
Yeah, not necessarily everything else.
Okay.
I think we have some polymer, which is the chemical they add to help thickening process that we know we needed to do, and that. But yeah, it's an arm's length back in the envelope type number.
Is that? Do you guys have an expectation of what the the cost split is that we're looking at then on that?
I can field that one, Jason. Currently I have to go back and look to get the exact percentage, but we're roughly in there for about 54-55% of the cost sharing. And that's precisely why I wanted to get in front of you all now on this, is to first let you know that this is something that was planning on coming, but now it could come 1 to 2 years sooner potentially than we think, at least for the dryer replacement. Some of what Jason shared with us would be in addition to that amount. And so before we can even go down that path, we need to have better numbers to understand what the real cost is going to be. And that would be done largely, I think, with in the preliminary engineering that he's proposing for the next year and a half.
Do you have an idea what kind of grants might be available?
So,
is there any history of you can see other places?
Yeah, and that is something we're starting to look at now, and something we'd explore more as we go through the preliminary. Certainly, though, for this type of thing, especially when you're talking about energy efficiency, there are opportunities for grants out there. I would like to try and really stress looking at grants instead of going down the path of loans. I need to meet with Sherry and really get a sense from her about where the utility is at as far as cash balance and what we're capable of doing. One of the nice things here is that with the schedule that's roughly proposed here, we have a few years here to start working towards something. But again, the reason I wanted to bring this to you is like right now, none of this work was considered when we did the rate increase package in 2018. So I really want to try and figure out a way that we can minimize the impact to our ratepayers here.
You are aware that if council members right now are pushing to lower the rates, and the ones that might come in are going to push real hard to lower the rates. So it's going to be a challenge for us to get this done and also take care of their wishes that way too. So,
I do, absolutely. Again, that's why we're here, and you know, we're a creative bunch, and I think we can find paths forward, but we need to have all the cards on the table, and certainly this is a big one.
Yep. Great.
I guess from my perspective for you guys, I'm just trying to, at this point, we're trying to put forth this, not coming back every 2 to 3 years saying, now we need this, now we need this. I'm trying to give a clear picture of all of the pieces that may be needed over the next 2 to 10 years and have the design encompass all that so we don't look like we've got this piecemeal project. It can be thought out at this point. The dryer is a heavy problem for us at this point. We've had a lot of just end of life metal fatigue type problems on it. The deterioration, we had to cut off the bottom and weld it. We had a large drive sprocket that just fractured and spun on the shaft that we had to do an emergency repair on. We've got one of the main seals on the hot oil that runs through the paddles that is currently leaking. These are everything we can see on the exterior side of it that appears to have reached end of life type situation. We've never seen what's on the inside of it. And the only person that I know of in the world right now that probably knows what's inside there is Chad with AIT. And he knows that. And he wants to say things like he wants 50% before he makes the part, and he wants the other 50% before he shows up. And he doesn't care who pays him, but those are his terms. So, you know, if we can get something worked out with him and get him down here this time to do it, that'll take a little of the pressure off. The big fear is that that thing's going to break inside. We can't fix it. We are hauling a 20% cake to an Eastern Washington facility. Tipping fees will be very expensive. We will chew up money in a hurry, and we will own the liability on all of that land application forever. With Class A, we do not own it. So there are some real drawbacks for us on the default side if it breaks. So I guess that's why this has been, like Jason's mentioned, this is going on 3 years now, and we've been baling wire and duct taping and fixing everything the best we can. We've peeled back that pretty stainless cover to replace bolts, and we've done a lot, but it's just kind of the end is near unless we get a major rebuild done on that back half.
Ron, is it? I was under the understanding when the dryer is running, your output is Class A. Is that what it was?
That is correct.
Good. Yeah. I was under the impression it was still Class B, but yeah. So that's
no, it's a Class A exceptional product, and it's available for the public giveaway, and there is no monitoring requirements. If we go to Class B, we own it forever, and the tipping fees on a emergency basis are not cheap to get rid of it. That's all I can say. Jack can probably attest to that also. I think a lot of places pay for emergency capabilities, even if they're not going to use it, just so they have it available to them.
Hey, Ron, Hey, I just wanted to jump in here really quick. First of all, thank you. It helps to have your specific knowledge here. We do, though, have a pretty full agenda tonight, and we have council starting at 6. So I think we probably should try and wrap it up unless, Kelly, I don't know if you had any questions that you wanted to ask real quick before we close this for now? Okay. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up for now. Obviously, there's a bigger conversation that's going to remain ongoing. I just wanted to get this out on the table now. And as needed, Sumner's always welcome to come back and present again as we move forward.
I've been there numerous times, and we have several new council members. It'd be worth another tour in the near future to bring them down there, because you don't understand that unless you walk the whole facility.
Absolutely.
And I know what they're going through, so I appreciate the presentation tonight.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sumner folks. Appreciate it. We'll be talking again soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Early warning on that. Very nice.
Sure thing.
First item of business, of course, authorizing contract. Manhole rehabilitation.
Yeah, so
yep, check. Good.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I know we're pressed for time here, but I'll try to get through this as
Elevator. Think elevator. We're in an elevator. You got 3 floors. Go, Andrew. Come on.
okay. So for the sewer manhole rehab project, I'll just go brief summary, summarize the IDQ contract, cover the RFQ process, budget explanation. And so this project is a continuation of the manhole rehab effort that started about 10 years ago with the first IDQ contract. This is the indefinite quantities contract to perform the preventative maintenance on the sewer system manholes. With this contract, we're planning to rehab about 200 feet of manhole, with the rehab, including at a minimum pressure washing, crack patching, plugging active infiltration, and then installation of the Raven liner system. We developed a request for quote and received 2 quotes on August 5th with Suncoast Environmental Northwest delivering the lowest quote of $254,355. For the budget, we have sewer manhole rehabilitation for $90,000 in 2021 and another $90,000 in 2022. So we can perform rehab up to $90,000 this year. And if we want to extend the contract with Suncoast another year, we can rehab up to $90,000 in 2022.
Nice.
That's about it. Is there any questions?
I appreciate all the documentation there that you guys do a great job with that, identifying all the manholes and everything. I don't know, Kelly's probably the first time you've seen something like this or what have you with the IDQ contract. It's kind of like they just keep fixing them until they run out of money type of a thing.
That's my favorite contract.
Hey,
I just go bleed. I go bleed the government for every dollar I can get.
It's up to our guys to keep them on task and moving along there, trying to get our money's worth.
Yeah, I was a little apprehensive too when I first was presented with managing or overseeing this contract, but there's so much, being indefinite quantity, meaning like unknown quantity, but it's really very similar to a traditional contract.
Right. Yep. Tom, you have any particular questions? No. We've done these before. There, Kelly, I don't know if you've done one before or not. And then 410 one, hopefully.
It's on the list. You got it.
Right? Yeah.
You got it.
Somebody else, whatever. Good enough. Move forward to the next available council meeting on consent agenda. Is that okay, Kelly? Yeah.
Good for me.
Yeah. Okay. Item number 2, contract with Provac for stormwater
Real quick,
drainage
the money for that, we already allocated that, right? We already had that in the budget.
That's correct.
Yep. That's why it's IDQ for that amount plus a little more or whatever.
Right.
Extra budget. Cool. Stormwater drainage rehab, kind of the same type of a thing. Another service provider is going to go around and clean up a lot of catch basins for us.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Andrew. Yeah, you're right. You're on that NPDES stuff all over the place. Yeah.
Right.
Another great project. Cool.
Yeah, another stormwater catch basin rehab project. This is the one that's required by the state through the MPS permit, and being that it's the operations and maintenance component, This why it's linked to this contract. So,
Yeah.
requirement to clean, inspect, maintain the catch basins.
That's
We're
just
gonna,
makes sense for labor utilization to do it this way as opposed to our guys type of thing because he go out there and do it all
well,
day long.
it's going to be a joint effort. I know that, Steve's work
Uh,
group is tasked with, maintaining a lot of infrastructure, not just storm, but, street also. But, so what we did is we've decided to separate the two efforts and have a contractor do a lot of the heavy lifting in the, in the residential areas where most of the catch basins are, and then have Steve's group come in and do the collectors and the arterials where they're also required to have a little bit more extensive traffic control, lane closures with flaggers. It costs a lot more to have a contractor, do that as opposed to just cleaning only. So we figure we get the best bang for our buck if we have just the residential areas done by a contractor and have Public Works do the collectors.
Nice. Kelly, go ahead there.
Yeah, so how do you know the work actually has to be done? Or is there some training? Is there some qualification? I mean, you've identified those. City staff has identified what needs to be done. Is that correct?
Correct. But it's also outlined in the MPDS permit. So there's thresholds and maintenance thresholds that we're required to abide by. So in this case, being that they're catch basins, if there's a accumulation of debris within 6 inches of the invert of the pipe, that triggers the cleaning of that structure. And there's another checklist of rehab that's required when there's cracking. There's if there's vegetation growing in the structures. If there's dead animals, you got to yard them out of there. If there's whatever the case may be, if there's a compromised frame and grate or a concrete collar that's broken, it's all got to be corrected and fixed per our permit.
Good deal.
So I guess you guys are trained. People are aware of it. I mean, we're not cleaning stuff that doesn't need to be cleaned.
Well, they break the lid off, right, and check it out because it's not like they've done a extensive super duper inventory, right? They go to the structure, check it out, do what needs to be done, as inspected.
For the most part, you can see, what you need to see and know what you need to do when you pop the lid off. But and every once in a while, you'll get some pretty rough ones that are, full of debris and cobwebs and other things that, until you get in there and really clean it, you're not really sure how extensive the rehab is going to be. But I mean, for the most part, we pretty much know when we do our first inspection.
Okay.
It's almost like, is this IDQ also, or the kind of thing?
No, this one is not IDQ. This one is through the Stormwater Operations and Replacements Unscheduled Project Budget for $51,500. But similar though, we do want to exhaust the entire budget because our bid came in at $40,125, even though we have, so we'll have a balance of $11,375. But being that, it's going to cost us more money next year to clean the same catch basins, we're going to try to exhaust, the entire budget this year and just move from section to section until ultimately we'll have the whole city done by the deadline.
Good to me. Tom?
Good to me. Consent.
Tom's good. Mr. Kelly? Good.
Except for the last comment about spending all the money, I was okay. But
Oh, well, yeah. That's why you budget for them, right? As long as you're getting work done for the budget,
As long as it's real work that's getting done, right? So I'm good.
It's going to cost us more money to spend to clean the catch basin next year than it will be this year. So the more we can get done, the better we are.
Yeah.
I think Kelly's concern is that we're not just spending money even though they don't need to be cleaned.
Oh no! I got you. No, it's required, and we only clean the ones that meet the maintenance thresholds, provided by ecology.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Forward on the consent agenda to the next available council meeting. Shelters back to Jason, I guess. On something that we can pivot apparently.
Yeah, so this is action number 2 as it relates to Engrossed House Bill 1220. As you know, we passed the interim zoning regulations regarding permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. The other part of that state law that was passed said that any zone that allowed for a hotel also had to allow for emergency shelters and emergency housing, and that provision takes effect on September 30th. Currently, the city has no hotels anywhere in the city, nor have we had received any permits for any hotels. So in discussing this, the recommended course of action at this time is just to remove hotels and motels as a permitted use, and therefore we're not required to comply with the second part of Engrossed House Bill 1220 because we don't have hotels and motels as a permitted use in any zone. The zones that typically allow that are Midtown and Downtown. I will say that under the development agreement with Visconsi, the only site that could possibly get a hotel would be the Visconsi site, and this would not affect the development agreement because they're vested to code. So even if we make this change, you could still see something happen at the Visconsi site. So you could get basically the benefit of both worlds at this point. But if we don't pass this ordinance, then we would need to adopt interim regulations related to emergency shelters and emergency facilities, emergency housing facilities within downtown and midtown.
Sounds good, Kelly. Another.
Good idea, good plan.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Councilmember.
Other comments? Yeah, Kelly.
Yeah, so you answered the question of if we wouldn't pass this, we would have to deal with the emergency housing, which would mean we would pass something different to deal with with that.
Yeah,
And where is this? Where is the site you mentioned? What did you say? The Visconsi?
The Costco development is. They're under that Wazoo forest area where you're seeing where the Habit Burger is and all that. They're under a vested development agreement, and they're vested to old code. So those sites in there that are the only vacant sites that could possibly maybe support a hotel are unaffected by this ordinance as long as the development agreement stays in place.
Okay. And we're pretty sure nobody wants to build a hotel in Bonney Lake.
In the 10 years I've been here, I have not had any applications, pre-applications, conference calls regarding hotels. And our economic vitality element, we actually had an economic consultant look at that question, and they said our market conditions are not right to support a hotel. That may change in the future, but at this point in time, the options are we either remove it as a permitted use or we do the interim regulations for emergency homeless shelters and emergency housing in downtown and midtown.
Kelly, I've got a friend who builds hotels, and he toured with Chris out there in Easttown, and he toured with me once before, and he still says we can't afford to build a hotel or not enough weekday business for hotels. So he's not interested. He has built numerous hotels.
Yeah, and there are a lot of there's a lot of the bed and breakfast type possibilities in Bonney Lake to serve the community that needs to have family visit but can't put them up.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds like a practical solution to me currently, because we can always come back. Hotel, motel proposal is going to be probably it's a long term. They're not going to want to build it next week. If they come in and deal with that later.
Yeah, if by some chance tomorrow the Ramada calls me and the world flips upside down, we'll come back and we'll discuss approaches. But
we're a great weekend idea for hotels, skiing, resorts up here, fairs and stuff, and all that. But the problem is back to our weekday high dollar.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the economic vitality element study showed, is that we just don't have the market to support it.
How much would it be to change it back? If we decide to change it back, is that money? Is that a lot of time? Or is it like it's been 2 weeks since
It's a couple, it did take us a little bit of time, but it's my time at the staff level.
Okay.
And I'm already here.
Kind of.
You wouldn't see it in the budget then, right?
You wouldn't see a change in the budget.
Okay, good.
Got him doing other stuff though. So we're good, Kelly, with that, moving it forward?
Consent
Very
or
good.
regular?
Consent, we'll move forward on the available. Item number 5, right away for the four. Skipped one, building. Too long. Got it out to 2020.
Correct.
Last time we did it, we did the term.
So yeah, so we did a 2-year, this time we did it till 2023, only because we were almost through
Oh, was that
2021, so it works like
I
out to
was
be.
looking at 2020. I was reading the thing
Yeah.
from 2020. Okay.
Yeah, so it works out to be a 2.5-year term. In the time that we had the interlocal agreement, we've done 22 hours of inspection over 2 years, so it's not a huge time implication.
Yeah.
The ILA does specifically provide for, if we don't have capacity, we can decline it.
Sure.
The only change, I just want to let the council know, if you want to move forward with this, instead of just having the amendment document, since the original ILA expired, we talked with Kathleen, we'll need to include a full new ILA.
Sure.
So we'll take the old ILA and then just put this language in it.
Okay.
So it'd be the same as extending it, but just packaged different.
Brian, are you the supervisor?
Hey, Jason is immediate supervisor.
So you're okay with?
Yeah, the way it requests, the way it works is they email me and say, we need inspections on this date and this date. I get with the building official and my
Sure.
2 inspectors to see if we have capacity based on our current inspection load. And then we let them know if and when we can do the inspections.
Is that a long answer of you're okay with it?
Yeah, well, I just want to let you know, so for budget people, we did build in all the
Yes.
COLAs into the future. Yes.
Okay, very good.
But we built all the COLAs into the rates.
Kelly?
going over the new.
Do you have any
Fast.
comments on the,
I'm
Kelly's okay with, yeah, I like, interlocals, I
Yeah,
like the
I'm
idea of
good.
being able to share resources. So moving forward on next available council meeting,
Consent.
very good. And then we get to go to the 410 right away, some more stuff that we've closed on there. Safeway, did that negotiation go well with Safeway for that $1 million piece of property, Mr. Woodcock?
Did it go well? We have it in hand. It did take us quite a bit of time to get it, but this is the last right-of-way parcel necessary for the RAB if that becomes a possibility in the future.
Probably will. We'll get there. It's just a little bit of a drag, one way or the other. Is there any? Of course, the committee. I know several of us. Of course, how much more property? Do we have any idea what the? This would obviously be a piece you would need if you did even just a light, right?
Yeah, the light actually has about 10 more pieces. It has 10 more.
Yeah.
It was 10 more. It was 14 parcels, yeah, for the other one, but it would take more for this one as well. You'd need more from Safeway. You have to go back from Safeway to get more land from them.
Basic question would be, this we're not wasting it if somebody went with a different style of intersection. We know we're going to need this.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We'll need the right of way.
Mr. McClemens?
Well,
He's
good.
getting as good on this one.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't put this on the consent agenda.
Okay, 10-4. Regular CDC,
Good
to get
point.
next.
Slide it through there.
It's like, what is this committee doing? They tell us they vote no. CDC items next available. Notes and.
They're good.
Kelly, you have any changes needed? Nope. Kelly's not going to be joining us downstairs, I guess, right? Nope. Or will.
I will, not this week, but I will.
We'll have to carry you down the lightweight suitcase.
Like before.
Next week.
Okay, well, we'll
See you
close this
soon,
meeting
Kelly.
then, and
Okay, see you soon. Thanks, guys.
So if you go down my street,
Yes.
see some 3